Hi there. Yes, there's a one for land use meetings, and I think Good afternoon and welcome to the May 2nd land use meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. You may notice that a few people are not there today. We have two commissioners that are waiting to testify on an applicable item for the state legislature. And so seeing that we do have a quorum, and as I am attending the meeting remotely, I'm going to kick off to my colleague in the room there, our Vice Chair, Commissioner Geithner. And our first action will need to be excusing our colleagues.
Go. This is Commissioner Williams. I move to excuse Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Second.
Okay, we'll proceed with a vote. Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Chair Bremer?
Aye.
And the Vice Chair votes aye. That passes 3-0 to excuse both Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Vanderwerf. Proceeding with item 1.
Item number 1 is staff emergency items, and I'm unaware of any staff emergency items.
Item 2.
Item number 2 is changes, postponements, and notice of the next meeting. There are no changes or postponements to today's agenda, and the next meeting will be May 9th at 9:00 a.m.
Item 3.
Item 3 is public comment on items not scheduled on the agenda. This is the public's opportunity to speak on an item not scheduled on today's agenda. And Madam Vice Chair, no one has signed in ahead of time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak at public comment, or do we have anyone online? Okay, so seeing and hearing none, item 4.
Item number 4 is the land use consent calendar consisting of item number 4A.
Thank you. Item 4A, are there any comments from the public? Doesn't look like there's anyone here. Are there any comments from commissioners? Do we have a motion?
Okay, I move approval of item 4A, the land use consent calendar.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments at this point? Okay, so we'll call the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Chair Bremer.
Aye.
And the vice chair votes aye. That passes with a 3-0 vote. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is the called up consent calendar, and there are no items called up.
Item 6.
Item number 6 is department and committee reports, non-action items, and there are none.
Item 7.
Item number 7 is the addendum, and there are no addendums today.
And item 8.
Item number 8 is executive session, and there is no request for executive session.
That concludes the business for today's land use meeting, and we will adjourn. Chair Bremer, I'm not sure if you wanted to kick this one off. Okay. And we'll just hold tightly for a moment.
Hey, Blake, I am on and ready for the work session.
Chair Brummer, I think if you were speaking before, we could not hear you, but we can now. So please go ahead.
I just said that I was present and ready for the work session, and I will kick off to Commissioner Geithner.
Great. So we are convening today's work session related to carports, I believe. So like, where's the agenda item? Go ahead. There's no number.
I'm happy to read the work session into the agenda. The agenda title for this work session is a request for a work session to discuss and receive feedback concerning potential amendments to the El Paso County Land Development Code 2022 in regard to carports located in the front and yard setback. Megan Harrington, Executive Director, Planning and Community Development.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Megan Harrington. We're going to chat a little bit this afternoon about carports. The staff that did most of the work here is Mindy Madden, Strategic Services Manager for Planning and Community Development, as well as Ed Schoenheit with the Department of Transportation, County Department of Transportation. So Mindy is sick today and unable to make it, so I'm going to pinch hit for her. And if you have any questions that I'm unable to answer, we will get you that. We'll get you those answers at a later date. But I think I have carports under control. It's fairly straightforward, just comparing for you today the current code versus the proposal. The current zoning code defines a carport as being temporary. It's a detached covered structure without walls, not subject to the building code, and used for limited protection of vehicles from rain and snow. The criteria for constructing or establishing a carport on a residential property is that an open-sided carport, metal or canvas, not classified as a structure under the building code, may extend into the required front yard setback to a point 15 feet from the property line. And that's illustrated in the diagram here. In a typical suburban lot scenario, the front yard setback for a single-family residence is 25 feet, and a lot of those homes are set back at that 25-foot line. The current code reads that the carport would need 15 feet from the front property line or a sidewalk. That only leaves a depth of 10 feet for a carport under the current code. So that depth really doesn't allow for a lot of coverage. When we look at carport kits, they're typically 20 feet in depth, 20 by 12. There are some that were 10 by 12, but the typical is a lot longer than the 10 feet. The proposal would be to decrease the front yard setback requirement from the 15 feet to a 5-foot setback. And that language would read, carports required to be at least 5 feet rearward of the property line and or sidewalk, if there's a sidewalk present, pending compliance with clear zone requirements per the engineering criteria manual. And that's illustrated by a similar drawing, the 25-foot setback, a 5-foot setback for the carport, and that would allow the depth of the carport to go up to 20 feet. There are some concerns from the engineering department related to site visibility, that clear zone, and language in the engineering criteria manual. Won't go too deep into that, but Ed is here if you have questions related to that. And that's really the 5-foot setback from the sidewalk and the roadway to allow that safe space for maneuvering in and out of the carport. With the increased usage of the carport in the front yard, the proposal also recommends updating the definition to remove the word temporary. A carport is a detached structure consisting of a roof supported by posts with 3 or 4 open sides used to offer limited protection to vehicles. And so carports really aren't temporary. Once they're in, they are there and they stay there. A little bit of the difference here is that under the current code, there was language in there related to not being considered a structure under the regional building code. And that requirement is at 200 square feet. So that 200 square foot building requires a building permit per regional building. Anything under does not. This would allow a carport to be larger than 200 square feet, could be up to a maximum of 500 square feet, must be accessed from an approved driveway, only one enclosed side if it abuts the principal structure, and shall not have panels or screening in the area between grade level and 60 inches above grade level. And those requirements are really, again, for safety's sake. You can see in the two pictures on the screen, there is side panels on the carports. It's hard to see to maneuver in and out of the carport. Both of these carports are set directly behind the sidewalk. And again, there's pedestrian as well as vehicular safety concerns when you can't see if you're pulling out. So neither one of these is permitted carports. Additional proposed criteria would include made of galvanized steel or galvanized metal or wood painted to match the primary structure, not be flexible material, canvas, plastic, polyester, or other tent-like material would not be permitted, comply with regional building codes, and meet all other applicable standards from the code for accessory structures. So again, in this photo here, what is left of this carport would not be permitted. We did have an informal briefing with the Planning Commission on April 20th. They had several questions. Why not allow carports greater than 200 square feet without requiring a building permit? And again, that is a Pikes Peak Regional Building decision for building permit requirements for structures over 200 square feet. And when we asked Regional Building for a little more language related to that, the International Code Council has determined over 200 square feet does require a permit. Under that size, there's minimal life safety issues. Permit and inspection are not required. Planning Commission wanted to ensure that we are continuing to allow carports to encroach in the side yard setbacks as well as easements. And that language from the code is currently there and that is not changing. So a carport could encroach in a rear setback, can also encroach in an easement with permission from the easement holder. The Planning Commission had several questions about the City of Colorado Springs Code. The city in the last 2 to 2.5 years adopted a permitting process for carports. They asked how this what this proposal looks like in comparison to that, and how many permits the City of Colorado Springs had. We do have more detailed information on that. Happy to present that to you. Basically, this proposal incorporates several similar characteristics to Colorado Springs, from the 5-foot setback, the maximum size of 500 square feet, and the requirement to paint the structure to match the home. But that is basically where the similarities are. The City of Colorado Springs requires a standalone permit, has many more design criteria. Those are not incorporated into this proposal. And we did not get a good number of how many permits have been issued by the city. We're still looking for that information. Planning Commission asked if a carport is attached, will we still allow a reduced setback? If the carport's attached, it's then part of the principal structure, and this reduced setback would not apply. Homeowners associations may still prohibit carports if you have covenants within your HOA that require certain setback or specifically state no carports, then those provisions would prevail. Enforcement continues to be on a complaint basis unless we would hear otherwise from the board. We're not proactively enforcing on carports. We do get about 15 or 20 complaints a year. Most of those are snowball. Once there's one complaint in a neighborhood, then that person typically will turn in 20 more neighbors. And so those are typically, several of them will have the ability to get an administrative relief from the requirements. A few of those in a year, I'm told 2 to 3 may go to a board of adjustment for a variance. Most will just remove the carport. There's no action needed on approved existing carports. Those would be considered legal nonconforming. And then, the question we were asked by Planning Commission also was, how are we getting the word out to citizens that this is a proposal and that's moving forward? And we're posting that on our website. We're working with the county communications department to use social media to try to get the word out. We did the informal with Planning Commission. There would be another formal meeting in front of Planning Commission, similar to what we're doing here today, using all of those social media avenues to get the word out the best that we can. This is another carport that would be, I don't believe this would be permitted under the current code. I don't think that's 15 feet from the back of that sidewalk. It would be permitted under the proposal. And then just a few other pictures. The larger picture here on the screen, that is a side setback encroachment that would continue to be permitted. This proposal would not impact that. However, the two photos that are stacked on top of each other, neither one of those would be permitted. The bottom photo, that is canvas, tent-like fabric. The proposal would require more of a solid structure. And then the photo on the top is, looks like a combination between a tent and a carport, again with sides and canvas that would not be permitted. And that is staff's presentation. Again, we have a lot more information on the city's proposal, safety concerns. Ed is here to address engineering. Didn't want to go into any of that unless you had specific questions that we are definitely prepared to answer.
Commissioner Williams.
So these would go in front of the Board of Adjustment for approval to have a carport?
If a variance is required because you're not meeting the code, then yes, currently a Board of Adjustment would be required.
Okay, and then if I wanted to put in a carport, it would go in front of the Planning Commission, then come to us, or what's the process from there? Or just have to come to you to get a permit?
So under the current code, if you're not meeting that 15-foot setback and you would like the carport to encroach within the 15 feet, it would be a Board of Adjustments for variance and then on to a building permit. So there would be no Planning Commission, no Board of County Commissioners action. If with the proposal and increasing the setback, we assume that that would decrease the number of Board of Adjustments, that decrease the number of administrative relief. It would all be administrative at that point, moving forward to a building permit. A site plan is required, but those are reviewed administratively.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Chair Bremer, did you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Last call here, Commissioner Williams. Okay, so it seems like you have answered all of our questions tremendously, unless you have anything else to add. It looks like this is the end of the road for us.
Thank you, Commissioners. Our plan is to take this back to a formal hearing in front of the Planning Commission in May. It may not make its way formally back to you in June. And of course, we are available if you have any questions. We're happy to answer those. So thank you.
Thank you. And so again, hearing and seeing no additional questions or comments, and obviously this is just a work session, so there's no vote to be taken today. I think we are adjourned. Did I miss anything?